Just waiting for it to go live, so I'll let you know. Mr. Chair, we are streaming live on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. So I call this May 6th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting to order at 6 p.m. This meeting will be held in a hybrid manner where committee members, staff, and the public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township website. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information obtained is considered part of the public record. All rules apply to the meeting as if everyone was attending in person, and if there is a problem with the technology impacting the proceedings of a meeting, the meeting may be recessed. Can I get an adoption of the agenda, please? Ms. Hajnik, seconded by Councillor Willis. Any questions with the agenda? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Approval of the Committee of Adjustment minutes of April 2nd, 2024. Can I get a motion to adopt those minutes? Mr. Lindsay, seconded by Councillor Broderick. Any errors, edits, omissions? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Section 5, public meeting D13003 2024 118 Creighton Drive, Braydon, Norris, minor variance. I'll turn it over to Mr. Griffin.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll be presenting 5.1 and 5.2 together, which are planning applications for 118 and 120 Creighton Drive to reduce the interior side yard setback for a semi-detached house with no attached garage from 3 meters to 1.2 meters. Staff are recommending approval of the applications as they comply with the 4 tests of minor variance. First, they meet the general intent of the official plan as the proposed use is in keeping with the low density residential designation. Secondly, they meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw as there's not room for a detached garage in the rear yard and the semi-detached dwelling is permitted. Thirdly, the variance is considered appropriate as it will allow for the efficient use of the land to support the overall residential use. And lastly, the variance can be considered minor as the proposed setback reduction will not cause negative impact on the surrounding neighboring uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Is there any proponent? Madam Deputy Clerk, wishing to speak?
We do not have anybody else in the virtual world.
Okay. Council, our committee, sorry. Anybody wish to? Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Griffin, I'm just wondering, this development or this area was originally approved by a plan of subdivision, correct?
Through the chair to to committee member Lindsay, that's correct. Definitely. To committee member Lindsay, so the first, it is a approved plan of subdivision. However, in this development, the developer sold the lots individually, so it's not the developer developing the lots, so it's going to a individual contractor. So in this particular instance, and in the applications that you saw 2 months ago, it was the same landowner. So they do have a design which requires a 1.2 meter setback, as they are not having a garage, and the zoning requires a 3 meter setback if there is no garage to allow for room for access to the rear for a detached garage. So in this instance, it is appropriate for the 1.2 meters, as it does meet their individual design, and it is not foreseen that moving forward, it will be required for many others, as there is designs which, most people do want to build homes that have a attached garage, which would allow for the 1.2 meter setback. Then in terms of the air conditioner, staff are satisfied that there's sufficient room, as a 1.2 meter setback is our standard setback in most zones for residential development of this kind. And oftentimes we see the air conditioners there and there is sufficient room. It's just, again, in this instance, the 3 meters was a zone specific to allow for a garage in the rear yard if they weren't building a garage. However, in this instance, a garage wouldn't even be feasible in the rear yard. So staff believe that this development and the proposal is appropriate and are recommending approval.
Any further questions? Despite that staff addressed both 5.1 and 5.2 together, we'll have to address them separately. So we'll deal with 5.1 first and the recommendation. So I will read the recommendation that the report from the Development Services Division, May 6, 2024, re 118 Creighton Drive, Braydon, Norris, minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13003-2024 affecting property described as Lot 24, Plan 29M66, being Part 14, Plan 29R 1183 in the former township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township in the county of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly located at 118 Creighton Drive in Odessa. 2, reduce the interior side yard setback for a semi-detached dwelling house with no attached garage from 3 meters to 1.2 meters. Section 5.14.5.10.2B3 be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, the variance only applies to the location as identified on the drawings submitted with the application. Can I get a mover for that recommendation, Councillor Broderick? Mr. James? Any comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And then over to 5.2. Any further comments, Mr. Griffin?
Through the chair, no further comments.
And just to be clear, Madam Deputy Clerk, nobody else wishing to speak? Okay. So the recommendation here is that the report from the Development Services Division, May 6, 2024, re 120 Creighton Drive, Braydon, Norris, minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13004-2024 affecting property described as Lot 24, Plan 29M-66, being Part 15, Plan 29R1183 in the former township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township, in the county of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly located at 120 Creighton Drive in Odessa. 2, reduce the interior side yard setback for a semi-detached dwelling house with no attached garage from 3 meters to 1.2 meters be approved, subject to the following conditions. The variance only applies to the location as identified on the drawings submitted with the application. Can I get a mover? Effect, Ms. Hajnik, seconded by Mr. Preston. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And we come to 5.3, 44 Glenora, Terry Quinn, minor variance. Mr. James.
Thank you. This application is for a minor variance at 44 Glenora Drive in Bath. It proposes to reduce the rear yard setback for a deck from 6 meters to 5 meters. Staff are recommending approval of the application as it meets the 4 tests of minor variance. It meets the general intent of the official plan as it conforms with the low-density residential designation. The general intent of the zoning bylaws met as there's still sufficient green space in the rear yard for amenity area beyond the deck. The variance is appropriate as the deck is in keeping with the residential use of the property. And lastly, the variance is minor in nature as the deck will not cause negative impacts to the neighboring uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Madam Deputy Clerk, anyone in the audience?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's no one in the virtual audience.
Okay, I'll turn to the committee. Any questions? This particular application. Councillor Willis.
Through the chair. Behind this house, there's a water course, which is a feature, I assume, of the golf course. Is there any worry about proximity to that?
Through the chair to Councillor Willis, I know there's not, as it is through the development of Loyalist Estates, it is actually a stormwater pond. So it's development and water is to go there. And so we consulted with CRCA and they do not see it as a regulated feature as it is a planned stormwater pond.
Further questions? We have a recommendation before us. I will read the recommendation. That the report from the Development of Services Division, May 6, 2024, re 44 Glenora Drive, Terry Quinn, minor variance be received, and that the minor variance application D13005, 2024, affecting property described as Lot 18, Plan 1193 in the former township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township in the county of Lennox and Addington, and more particularly located at 44 Glenora Drive in Bath, to reduce the rear yard setback for a deck from 6 meters to 5 meters, section 4.40B and 5.12.2C4, to facilitate the construction of a deck in the rear yard be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the variance only applies to the location as identified on the drawings submitted with the application. Can I get a mover to that effect? Councillor Broderick, seconded by Councillor Willis. Any comments, questions? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And we come now to 5.4, D10001, 2023, 4800 County Road 2, Rene Doornekamp, Severance. And
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be presenting this consent application. So the purpose of this report is to outline the consent to sever application and recommend approval of the proposed severance being requested for the subject property described as 4800 County Road 2. This consent application is related to previously approved official plan amendment application D09003/2023 and zoning bylaw amendment application D14016/2023. These applications were required to create a policy framework and provide zoning permissions to permit a new rural residential lot with the retained lot being less than 10 hectares. And the appeal period for both the official plan and zoning bylaw applications have lapsed with no appeals. So the application in regards to the retained lot is enacted. So the staff has reviewed the proposed consent application with all the applicable planning policies and provisions and is recommending approval for this application. Supportive comments from the technical agencies have been provided along with no concerns from any member of the public. Hence, the staff recommends approval of the proposed consent application. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Sunny. Anybody in the audience, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do have Alex Adams. Would you like me to put him in as panelist? He could answer any questions.
Sure. I would recognize Mr. Adams.
Go on, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Adams.
Good evening. Yes, my name's Alex Adams. I'm just here to represent the owner tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Nobody else in the virtual audience, Madam Deputy Clerk? Seeing obviously nobody in the present audience, turning over to the committee. Questions for either Mr. Adams or for staff? Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application has given me some difficulty in the context of how it's come forth. I get the sense that the train has left the station on this and that the planning issues have been debated and decided with regard to the framework that we're reviewing this application today. And I guess what I'm concerned about is that it is the role of this committee to implement as best as we can the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And it's my opinion that 2 out of the 4 tests are in jeopardy of being satisfied, and that is the intent of the official plan and the intent of the zoning bylaw. And Mr. Chair, if I can have a bit of liberty here in a sense that when you do and develop an official plan document and the zoning bylaw follows from it, you're setting out council's policy with respect to how the municipality will deal with growth, deal with development, deal with such matters as subdivisions and everything, and ultimately individual severances, which is what we have here today. And I guess this has a bit of a history, at least I am trying to glean from it, because it's very rare that you see what I consider to be a spot official plan amendment followed by a spot zoning bylaw dealing with a specific property in the policy context of what the official plan policies were. And I guess my question or comment is, why do these lands warrant a special exemption to the official plan and zoning bylaw? It tends to go against council's position that once you establish these policies, you want to maintain consistency in your land use planning decisions. Because if you start doing one-off exceptions, then that questions the whole integrity of the documents. And it's been my experience in the past that it's a very slippery slope that once one goes down. Now, it's not my role here as being a member of this committee of adjustment to question council's decision, because obviously they made one in 2 cases in dealing with a specific official plan amendment, and then in a specific zoning bylaw to facilitate the application that we have here in front of us today. It's difficult to be able to then say the application does not meet 2 of the 4 tests, because technically it does. This process has been gone through. But it is not good planning, in my opinion. And I think I just want to put that on as a matter of record, Mr. Chair. When you see spot official plan amendments, it's bad enough when you see spot zonings, but sometimes those can be rationalized in the policy context. But when you do an individual official plan amendment and not having the benefit of seeing the background and staff reports that supported that official plan amendment, I question the validity of proceeding with this severance application. However, technically, it does satisfy the act. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
And those are received, Mr. Lindsay, and with my thanks. Further comments, questions? Well, we do have a recommendation that is before us. I will read it. That the report from the Development Services Division dated May 6, 2024, re 4800 County Road 2, Rene Doornekamp, Severance be received, and that the application D10-001-2023 affecting property described as Part Lot 38, Concession 3 in the geographic township of Ernestown, Loyalist Township in the county of Lennox and Addington, more particularly described as 4800 County Road 2, be approved, subject to, I believe there are 8 conditions. I shall confirm, yes, there are. Can I get a motion on the floor to adopt that recommendation? Counselor Broderick moves. Is there a seconder? Counselor Willis. I'll entertain discussion on the motion. Further discussion? Counselor Willis?
Just to say that I appreciate Mr. Lindsay's comments and agree with him, but I also agree that we're far enough down this path that we really don't have anything in front of us that allows us to deny this application.
Further comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Duly noted. Motion is carried. And there is no other business. And our upcoming meeting dates, the next scheduled meeting for the Committee of Adjustment is June 3rd of 2024. And I'll take a motion for adjournment. Mr. Lindsay, seconded by Councillor Willis. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned at 6:21.